Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to my Impress Your Date series. This is fettuccine with Neapolitan Ragu. This ragu sauce has so much flavor, I can barely stand it. This is a sauce, I'm not Italian, but this is a sauce that brings tears to the eyes of Italians remembering their mothers and grandmothers cooking this sauce all afternoon for Sunday dinner. I use fettuccine because you need a thick noodle that can kind of soak up the sauce, but you can use other thick noodles like penne. So let's start cooking. Okay, the first step in this Impress Your Date lesson on making fettuccine with Neapolitan Ragu is to turn on the oven to 250 degrees. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to par cook the bacon. Now the bacon has already been boiled, brought to a boil and then simmered for about 5 to 10 minutes. That removes extra fat, also removes that taste that is so distinctively bacony that it can overpower your dish. Now because some of the fat has been removed, I have added a little bit of olive oil to the Dutch oven. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook this until it's kind of until it's kind of cooked through but not crispy. All right, now we have about 1.5 pounds of pork country ribs, bone in, and we're going to give them a little bit of seasoning, which means salt and pepper in everything that I do. Seasoning always means only salt and pepper. If it's any other kind of herb or spice, I'll specify that. So we're going to season on both sides. And then I like to pat the salt and pepper into the meat. And also, if there's any of it that's kind of down on the sizzle plate there, we can pick that up and kind of embed it in the meat. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the bacon out of the Dutch oven with a slotted spoon and hold that aside for a bit. Now the next thing we're going to do is brown those ribs in the Dutch oven. Now you have to look and see if you think you have enough oil for that. Remember, I added some olive oil, and we have some of the fat that's rendered from the bacon. But we want to make sure that we have enough that we can brown those ribs. So I am going to add. You can see how much I have in here. I'm going to add just a little bit more olive oil. And then we're going to add these ribs and we're going to brown them all over. Okay, so our ribs are nicely browned. We're going to remove those and keep them warm. Next, we're going to take a look and see how much oil we have. Now, if we have too much fat in the pan, we're going to take some out. But it looks good for doing the sofrito. The sofrito is the onions and the carrots and the celery. We're going to season those a bit, lightly. Stir it up. And we want to cook these until they are starting to get kind of golden on medium to low heat. All right, now our sofrito is looking nice and golden. We're going to add the garlic. And garlic, remember from my lessons from the course, Cook Like a Pro, will burn fast and easy. Okay, so we want to keep stirring it while we're getting that garlic to cook a little bit. All right, now it's time to add the Italian sausage. Remember, this is sausage that's been taken out of the casing, or you can just buy Italian sausage that was never in the casing. And what we want to do now is break that up, and we want to brown this sausage. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. All right, our sausage looks nicely browned. We're now going to add the wine. And I want to scrape any bits off the bottom. That's called the fond, F-O-N-D. Well, it's called the fond in French. I'm not sure what it's called in Italian. Anyway, want to get all those bits scraped off the bottom. They become part of the sauce. We want to reduce this wine by about half. That burns off the alcohol, also concentrates the flavors. All right, now we want to put those ribs back in. Along with the bacon and any juices that came out of those ribs while you were holding them aside. Now we want to add the tomato paste. And I want to get everything well coated. And then I just want to stir it up and cook it for a little bit, and that paste will darken. All right, now we want to add the tomatoes and the parsley. Stir it up. Okay, now I'm turning the heat off on the stove. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to cover this Dutch oven. We're going to put it into the oven that we set earlier at 250 degrees. And any Italian worth his salt, I'm not an Italian, but any Italian worth his salt will tell you that you should cook a Neapolitan Ragu for 6 hours, about 6 hours, maybe a little more if you want, in the oven, in the Dutch oven, 250 degrees. So we're going to put this in the oven, and then we're going to turn those ribs every hour for the next 6 hours. Okay, time to turn the ribs. Now, I'm not going to be showing you every hour when I turn these ribs. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to show you once, actually. But we're just going to see how the sauce is looking. It's looking beautiful. Okay, back into the oven. Okay, it's been 5.5 hours that the ribs have been in the oven, and now in this last half an hour while those ribs are cooking, we want to heat our pasta water. Okay, so the pasta water, I don't know how long it's going to take to come to a boil on your stove. It'll probably take about 20 minutes, 25 minutes on my stove. So I'm going to heat that now so it's boiling and ready to go when we're ready to cook the pasta. All right, the ragu has been cooking in the Dutch oven in the oven for 6 hours. Oh, it's looking really good. And at this point, what we want to do is remove the bones that were in the ribs, and then we want to break up that meat, that rib meat, into the sauce. Also, if you see any fat floating on the top, you want to skim that off at this point. I don't have a problem with that here. Also, if when you pulled it out of the oven, it was maybe not as saucy, not as liquidy as you would like, then you could add some water, stir it in, make it a little bit thinner, whatever consistency you like. If you like a real thick sauce, don't use that much. All right, so I'm actually having trouble finding the bones here, so I will work on that separately off camera, and we'll just pull out all the bones. Then what we're going to do is put this on low heat right on top of the stove here and keep it warm until the pasta is cooked and we are ready to serve. So the next step is going to be to cook the pasta. Okay, so I've removed the bones. What I want to do now is I just want to taste this, see if we need to adjust the seasoning. No, I don't think it needs any more salt or any more pepper. So we're just going to cover this. We have it on low. Now we're going to cook the pasta. Okay, now we're going to cook our fettuccine. Now this is homemade fettuccine, so it's only going to take about a minute to cook. If you're cooking dry pasta, you just go by the directions on your box. It's going to be 4 to 7 minutes probably, depending on how thick your pasta is. All right, so we're going to let that cook for about, it's been in there for 15 seconds. We're going to let it stay in there for about another minute. Okay, the pasta cooked for about, well, I'm not going to tell you the time because it's going to depend on whether you're using fresh pasta or dried pasta. It took about a minute and a half to get al dente. And al dente, you know, means slightly, very slightly chewy. Now we're running this under cold water, so we stop the cooking. And then we just want to drain out the extra water. And we're going to let this sit aside for a bit until we're ready to plate. When we're ready to plate, we're going to plunge it back into the hot water, take it out, and plate it. Here we have the ragu. We're going to spoon however much we want on top of that. Nice good helping of it. Okay. And then we're going to garnish it with some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And there we have it. That's the conclusion of the Neapolitan Ragu with fettuccine in my Impress Your Date series. You can see photos of the final dish on my Instagram, which is @Chef's Apprentice Cook Like a Pro. Please remember to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and have a great date.